Welcome to Jake versus the Internet. I am the titular Jake. This is the show wherein a smug internet know-it-all voices his opinions and gives you the opportunity to call in and disagree. If you do disagree, there is a link pinned in the comments. You can click on that and tell me in what ways you think I'm wrong, and hopefully I'll learn a little something. Good to see you, HBX. Delighted to have everybody join us today, and our first opinion, of which I would like you to tell me how I am wrong about, is coming up when I click this button right jaw. The government should provide a free, generic social media platform. I believe that one of the things we should insist that our government do is provide us with a open social media platform. Now, why the government, as opposed to me just saying we should do an open source social media platform like OBS? Well, because it's not just a matter of software. The difference between a social media platform and a neat little newsletter is that in a social media platform, your media is held on to by a corporation of some kind. Well, you know what? It doesn't have to be. That's not definitional. Your media is not held on to by you. The burden of, say, hosting your videos or your live stream, that's offset by a company. And my suggestion to you is that we should acknowledge that pretty much everybody uses social media. If not to keep track of when you have family birthdays coming up, to look at restaurant reviews and school plays. You know, your brother has a kid in a school play. They live in another state. You can't get there, but it means a lot to the kid that you see it. Your nibbling niece or nephew. So what do? Do you fly across the country to see this play? No, you look at it on social media. It's just media sharing, usually connected to an algorithm, but frankly, it doesn't have to. It could be like a phone book. I think we should acknowledge that the burden of hosting video and text and audio transmissions is something we all have, and therefore it'll be cheaper, it'll be more efficient, it'll work better if we do it together. It would also mean you don't have to worry about censorship because when a social media company censors you, that doesn't affect your rights. That's not about your rights as a citizen. That's about their right, their obligations as a financial endeavor. Basically, you can't host evil people and try to make money off it. That's more or less what our rules say. And if they don't say that clearly enough, then they will eventually be written to say that because that's what's right. You can't make money spreading evil messages. But who's to say what is evil? You know, that's just that's a difficult thing to pin down. So if we were to say you gotta have it's not free speech if you don't have a voice. You gotta have somewhere, no matter who you are, no matter what you believe, you gotta have somewhere to say it. Then we should set aside our previous political moors, our foibles, and acknowledge this as a need, and then decide how will we address this need. But I'm not even talking about the specifics of how we should address it. I'm just saying we ought to acknowledge the need. Government means you and me. It means we decide what limitations this thing has, what obligations come from providing this. For example, if you say this is a government website and it will be up for the whole year, and then it shuts down after 6 months, or unintentionally it goes down after a week and it stays down for a week, do the people that were going to rely on it have any right to compensation? For example, if a restaurant posted its menu on this free platform and then the platform went down and nobody could see the restaurant's menu, you could argue that that business was now affected by relying on something that wound up not being there. So we now have a set of realistic issues to talk about relating to this main thing. The implementation may bounce around. It may change the way we view how it rolls out. But there is the initial issue. Should the government provide a free, generic social media platform? I think so. Nationalize Twitter, says HBX. I think that's a good idea, actually. I think we should make an offer. I don't think we should force any nationalization right now, but I think a good way for this to start would be for the government to make an offer on an existing social media platform. It could be Twitter. It could be Facebook. Could even be YouTube. It could be Twitch. It could be MySpace. Still exists, believe it or not. It could be MySpace. It really doesn't matter. So long as the government agrees to shoulder the burden of a building full of servers, basically, to store these things. Well, Amanda Patton, I think you would take a flight to see your nieces play. I would, because I have a wonderful set of nieces and nephews, but most people's are not good enough for a flight. Mine happen to be. Most are, they're stream worthy. Censorship is gay, says Freddy Got Fingered. That's a fine film. I enjoyed the sausage scene with the playing of pianos. Yeah, I think censorship can be a happy thing. Certainly, there's no reason why censorship can't be a little bit fun. I have a ball, just goofing off with censoring myself. But I do think censorship, well, it can be fun, should be done very lightly, if at all. I think we should leave it to people to decide on their lonesome what they want to hear and don't want to hear. Do away with the FCC and have channels registered through the patent office. Funny choice of words. I will never be able to explain why. Just patent your frequency. Um, mm, there's a number of reasons why I'd have to say that's not able to be implemented. Mostly because whatever frequency you're going off of, there's a finite number of them. So you will inevitably clash with another person, and it's a workaround that is choosing not to address when you say patent your frequency. Do away with the FCC, patent your frequency. It's choosing not to address the issue at hand. The issue at hand being who has the responsibility for the storage of the media. All good. Autocorrect can be a son of a gun. I assume you enjoy World War II stuff because that looks like your phone has autocorrected to that. So, when I say that the government should provide a free generic social media platform, I mean that it should not be the government's responsibility to market this. It should not be the government's responsibility to make this even necessarily a snappy, fun thing. It doesn't have to look good. It doesn't have to have a brand at all. The point of making it generic is that you, the citizen, can then use it for whatever means you so wish. But if it wasn't like this, if you did it like YouTube, where it has an attempt to streamline everything, to get you to jump between shorts and long form videos, it's advertising various live things to you. You could add that if you were very ambitious. You could add that to a government social media platform. But a government social media platform does not require those things. It doesn't even require a means by which you can advertise yourself on it. Like, for example, paying to boost ads, or randomly putting you in feeds that you haven't been in before via an algorithm. Doesn't need to do any of those things. Why? Because the goal is not for it to make any money. In fact, it should run at a loss, but the loss would be relatively minor. No, it should simply have 3 elements. Element 1, the ability to send images, including video and still. Send, store, so send and save. And then the same thing for audio, and then the same thing for text. And that's it. You might think, well, gosh, why do you need phones at that point? Why do you need YouTube, Twitch, blah, 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 blah? You don't. You do not need any of these things anymore. You wouldn't need Apple. You wouldn't need Google. You wouldn't need an Android. You wouldn't need an LG. You wouldn't need none of it. You would still almost certainly have these things. You would still almost certainly prefer these things in most scenarios because all of these things would be slightly more convenient. But if the government provided video, audio, and text, essentially messaging and storage for free, you would have an option for all of these things. You would have the basic option available, and you wouldn't need to set up your own special site, which does blah, 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 blah. You wouldn't need to buy inefficiently. That's the idea, gang. Most other countries have this. I was not aware of this at all. Public discord. Yeah, essentially. That's it. This is so well put. A government social media would be, in some ways, says Amanda Patton, an updated version of USPS. Yeah, I think it would be exactly that. Once upon a time, when the government realized, boy, most of us are literate now, huh? We decided there would be a cheap and reliable way to send letters around the country, deliver packages, etc. This is that. This is just that. It's the 21st century update to things we had acknowledged 100+ years ago were needed. So government should provide a free, generic social media platform. Call in if you disagree. The general way this is going to go, gang, is I'm going to keep. Yes, I'm going to keep adding these in. Sure, call in if you'd like. We're going to take a break every hour or so, maybe every half hour. We'll see how I feel. But if we don't get disagreement, I'm just going to assume that I have the whole country's agreement, and then we'll implement all these things into law. I'll keep it up for a little bit. Government should provide a free, generic social media platform. Johnny Russian says, hello, where are you from? Hello, I am from Michigan, specifically Southeast Michigan. It is a lovely little chunk of the country. Where are you from? I am going to guess Czechoslovakia. Yeah, I think that's where you're from. Where are you from, sir? And how do I say your name? Spell it out in what do you call it? Phonetic? Yeah, phonetically. Anywho. Here's why I imagine this would be good economically. I think that without the unnecessary expense of communications equipment for every single business, businesses can spend more on paying their employees or upgrading other things about their business. Or what the hell? Small businesses, for who such an expense is a concern, can just have more money to work with. Generally speaking, every month, they're not paying to boost ads or blah, blah, blah here or there. They're not paying for a premium account on this or that. They're just using the same thing everybody uses now. I also think you don't then need to buy a whole phone plan for your employees. If you've ever worked in a news station, all the employees usually have a smartphone with its own data plan. Because the company itself needs to know they have the ability to contact their reporters and sometimes camera folks like that. But if you have free audio services provided by the government, well, shoot, you're taken care of. So now every local news station gets to save a couple of $1,000s every month. And if you're worried, well, wait a minute, what about that $1,000, a couple of $1,000s bouncing around in the economy? No. They're spending it now with a corporation that already makes billions of dollars of profit a year. That money doesn't disappear from the economy. That money suddenly has an opportunity to appear in the local economy. It was gone before, but now it could be spent near you. I think that's a huge boon. And by the way, with most policies that one might describe as progressive, I don't think these words really mean anything anymore, but that one might describe as big government, let's say. The secondary effects are what pays for it. and the secondary effects are also very hard to track. It's very difficult to say, for example. Let's just forget whether or not it would work this way. Let's assume, for the sake of this point, that we live in a world where it happened and it did work. And there's a lot more, everybody just suddenly has a lot more money and they're not paying for a phone anymore or a phone plan anymore because look, they've got a free one and the convenience of having a data plan bouncing around isn't there for me. Well, how would you prove that? If you turned around and went to a bunch of voters, how would you prove, look, this thing's working? Again, I'm saying in this scenario, it is working exactly as intended. Just go with me so I can point out a flaw with it, an inherent flaw. Even if it is working exactly as intended, you wouldn't be able to draw a direct line to say, listen, every local news station around the country just got a couple of $1,000 a month freed up from its expenses. 15, what would it be? $30,000 a year, let's say, is on average, is now in the coffers of these local news companies. And we think what's happening is that the people who own these smaller stations are spending that stuff. They're upgrading their stations. They're buying fancier foods around town and more of it. They're going on shopping sprees. We think, but we don't have an IRS guy walking around tracking every single expenditure, every single change in expenses. We simply can't measure it. So we just have to leave it with we think. Point is, even if it was working perfectly, as hoped, and nothing ever does, but even if it was, you couldn't then prove it. If you had a long enough time to study it, if it was popular enough not for the next horrible administration to take it away, then you might be able to prove it. You could say, look at these broad trends and look how they match up with this. So you're going to have to get good if you like this sort of stuff. You're going to have to get good at explaining how things could work or maybe sometimes do work. Because you will the system we are in now was designed by people who prey upon the fact that truly helpful government programs take a long time, have secondary effects, have tertiary effects that are calculated, that are intended most of the time, but are not necessarily things you can prove in a capitalist way. I'm not even saying capitalism is evil here. I'm simply saying capitalism is not meant to measure government. It's meant to measure business, and measures of business success cannot be universally applied to government endeavors. That's crazy. That would be like judging a baking contest by the same measure of a Formula One driver. Oh, look, we don't even have to bother tasting the food. Ricky's cake came out an hour before everybody else's. He's the winner. It's a different thing, government, from capitalism. And we are in the United States, we have a government from a capitalist society, but that is not, that doesn't mean we should measure everything the same way. Oh, here we go. Yes, I was attempting to be funny about my my own ignorance, but I played it too close to the chest. There is no Czechoslovakia today. There is the Czech Republic and the Slovakian Republic, two different and independent countries, indeed. Would you approve the English king rule back in the USA? Yes, this is true, reference frame. Jake is American. Geography, not their strength. Also, math, not our strength. Or English, or finger painting. We don't have good schools, but that's because we have a lot of conservative politicians. Would you approve the English King Rule back in the USA? I don't know what the English King Rule is. I assume it's that every world leader must cover up for a diddler in some capacity. And we might not have that as an official rule here, but it is what our leaders have been doing. So I think we're following it accidentally, if I have that rule correct. Not sure if government providing a free platform is good. Would it be used for propaganda? Says try plugging it in. Yes, it would be used for propaganda, as would any other platform. I don't think it would be used for propaganda any more or less than what is currently done. Maybe a little bit less, simply because if it's a government platform, we all have a say in what the generic rules of it are, you know? And we could actually have an opportunity to weigh in. Whereas now, it's really just the relationship between the billionaire owner of the communications platform and the government, which tends to often, shockingly, favor the billionaire. Should government protect really messed up stuff? Yes. What if it was used to share PDF sites? No. So going back to the really messed up stuff, I think the limit that you must draw is it sharing a crime? Is it are you participating in a crime by the sharing of the thing, or is the sharing of the information, uh, you know, I guess I don't have to make it any more complicated. Is it part of a crime to show that stuff? Because that's not a free speech issue at that point. That's a law enforcement issue. Now, should the government have the ability to see whether or not your stuff is messed up? No, they should not. So if there's I mean, you're inevitably going to have a bunch of gross degenerates on there sharing the worst things you can imagine. And then it would get uncovered one day and people would say, how horrible is this? And we would all agree it is horrible. But it has to be possible for that to have happened. Because otherwise, the government could just check all of our things all of the time. They could constantly be monitoring everything we say and do to say, oh, we're just checking for that one thing that we know you don't like. So the short answer is yes, the government should be or the government should protect really messed up stuff. Inappropriate jokes, horrible language, yes. And there should be a line. For example, if it's a crime, you cannot plot a bank robbery with this stuff. And if people see you plotting a bank robbery or sharing PDF stuff and they report you, then the government should be able to get a warrant from a judge to search your social media. And specifically, the account mentioned sharing the things. And when the government has that warrant, they should be able to fulfill it by looking and then arrest you if necessary. If you appeared to have done the thing you were reported for doing. And yes, even that, we're going to, I'll never forgive you, Foxy. And then, even then, we're going to run into issues with, well, what if you're falsely reported? Well, what if? There's going to be all kinds of horrible things that go wrong, but we cannot legislate for people abusing the intent of the legislation. We can only make our intentions very clear and try to put in safeguards. Newman Core, I'm anti-free speech, just to be clear, but where does the gradient stop? I don't know why you would be anti-free speech. I think that's almost around the world a universally accepted goal. I think I hope you will change your mind on that one day. But where does the gradient stop? I would say it stops at criminality. Yeah, there we go, Newman Core. Yeah, free speech does not and never has meant that you can literally say whatever you want without consequences. No, if you're plotting a crime, it doesn't matter that the speech is not the problem. It is the plot that's the intentions that are the problem. Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Stops where someone else's rights begin, I would say, as defined by the law. So if you are sharing PDF file materials, or if you're plotting a bank robbery or an act of violence or something like that, then sure, then that would be a crime. But the crucial thing is, just because they are the government's servers that we would hypothetically be putting all these things on, it would not give any government employee the right to poke around in them. Yes. So the law decides where your freedom of speech begins and ends. Yes, it does. And it always has. But the law is written by who? Our representatives. So us, we write the laws and we decide, all of us collectively, what counts as freedom of speech and what does not. So we should always have robust conversations about that while acknowledging they are not infinite. You do not have the freedom to plot my murder. And if you are caught plotting such a thing, I hope I hope it doesn't go well. The thing is that you can say anything you want. That does not mean there aren't consequences. True, and I think that applies perhaps. Yeah, I mean, certainly that applies in a legal sense, and that should also apply in a social sense. You, I will defend to the death. Not that my death would matter in the slightest, but I would defend infinitely somebody's right to say the hard R N word. But if anybody did say that in my presence, we're not going to hang out anymore. You're not allowed in my presence anymore. In the most peaceful way I can imagine that going, I will leave the room. Because you should have social consequences for being a cunt. But you do have the right to be a cunt. Otherwise, will just be the next least worst thing. If you disagree, I encourage you to call in. In fact, basically these types of things come from Foxy correcting me over email gently and politely over many years, and me realizing that there's probably a good show in this somewhere. Newman Core, sorry I missed this though. You know what? Let's just this is possibly clippable. I think we're all sick of the Kirk stuff in terms of clips, but for the future. Newman Core says, sorry I missed this, though. How do you feel about the Kimmel thing and Charlie Kirk thing in a larger expression? I mean, first of all, Kimmel is not really related to Charlie Kirk beyond the fact that Kirk was the excuse used to suspend Kimmel. What actually happened was Jimmy Kimmel made a Donald Trump joke. He was joking about how cold Donald Trump was being about Charlie Kirk. Not a joke at Charlie Kirk's expense, but a joke about Donald Trump. So Jimmy Kimmel, a comedian, made a joke about the president, and then the president pressured the company that the comedian works for, who had a major merger coming up, into suspending that employee. If I had to guess, there will be some backlash, and then they'll unsuspend him, and it'll be a feel-good story. But maybe not. They didn't. Nobody. They just straight up fired Colbert. So, I think this is the most fundamental attack we have had on freedom of expression in the freedom of speech in the United States. I think it's a direct attack on the freedom of press, and I don't think it's enough that we survive it. It's not enough just to survive until the next election cycle. It's not enough to replace everybody. If we had all Republicans get replaced, I'm sorry to point out one political party, but it's the party of the guy that did this. If we had his whole political party get replaced next year with the other political party, that's not enough. The dude who did this, Donald Trump, broke the law. He abused his power to attack fundamental rights that we have as Americans. For this alone, Donald Trump should see the inside of a courtroom. I don't have any illusions about how well that trial is going to go. I don't have any illusions about, in fact, even getting to that point. But we shouldn't change what we say is true just because we think we are going to win or lose the fight associated with it. The truth of the matter is, Trump deserves prison time for what he appears to have done in this regard. That is what I think. This is the most. There aren't any more I could name. Well, you in your own sentence, you say the contradiction. I said most, not only. More could mean, I suppose, more egregious examples. No, I don't think there's any more egregious example. Now, that's certainly a matter of opinion. But I also don't mean it's the most righteous or whatever. I just mean it's the most clear cut, like the most obvious in terms of if you're looking for an example of something that is freedom of speech being attacked. Dude, comedian insults the president, president gets comedian fired. That's the most obvious I can think of example of an attack of freedom of speech, certain. Steven Sevick says, is it a First Amendment issue when private industry silences an employee for, I'm going to pause you already and say no. I'm going to read the rest of this, but ask yourself while I'm reading the rest why I could already say no. Is it a First Amendment issue when private industry silences an employee for saying things that aren't true and having horrible ratings on top of that? So going back up, a private industry silences an employee. No, that's not a First Amendment issue because that's a private industry. It's a First Amendment issue when the government, in this case represented by Donald Trump, pressures a private industry to fire an employee for something they said. So I think if you're being intentionally dishonest like this, when you say a private industry silencing employee, already you're acknowledging that dealing with the truth isn't something you can handle. You see what I'm saying? Because it was Donald, like well, maybe you don't know. I'm sorry. Maybe you don't know. Here's what actually happened. The company that owns Jimmy Kimmel's show, essentially, has a major merger coming up, and they need approval by the FCC. Donald Trump communicated with the head of the FCC, who communicated with the employee in question, Jimmy Kimmel, here, surrounding this, and got Kimmel fired. Ratings, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But all of that stuff you say afterwards, also things that aren't true. He said, we're going to talk about that. But having horrible ratings on top of that, all of that stuff's irrelevant. So for saying things that aren't true, it wouldn't matter if he said what he said was true or not. For having horrible ratings on top of that, irrelevant. The point is the president didn't like something a TV funny man said, and then he used his position of authority to attack that TV funny man's job. Yeah, that's classic freedom of speech problems right there. That's a massive, massive issue. That's in fact fascism, literally. That is what that is. I'm not trying to stir you up here. I'm just telling you straightforward. That's the very thing that your grandfather presumably fought against. Take that into consideration, sir. But then things that aren't true. What is it you think Kimmel said that wasn't true? He pointed out that Trump, when asked how he was holding up after after Charlie Kirk's death, when asked about that, Trump misinterpreted. He didn't mishear. He misinterpreted the words the guy said, and he answered a different kind of how are you holding up? He tried to answer in terms of like his poll numbers, like how popular are you now that Charlie Kirk's been assassinated? That's what he thought he heard, because let's be frank, he doesn't really seem to care about people. And so he said, "I'm doing great. I got the ballroom. They're painting, a $200 million ballroom that you're not allowed in, but he's happy to spend 200 million of your tax dollars on that. They're building that. That's all." And then Jimmy Kimmel's joke was, that's the second stage of grief, construction. That was the joke he made. So like any element of this, Steven, I feel like, oh, sorry, Steven Sevick said this, but any element of it, I feel like you already know that it's, and truly tell me if I'm wrong here. And nobody else, by the way, in the comments, don't argue with Steven. I'd like to talk to him. Don't all jump on him. But let's be sincere for a moment. I think when I look at this comment, I get the sense that you already know the things I'm going to say, and you know that they are true. And I worry that no amount of true things I tell you will matter. And I further worry that I won't be able to understand what your argument actually is, because your argument can't be that a private industry silenced their own show host. We simply know that's not the case. They have a merger coming up. The FCC must approve that merger. Trump very publicly put pressure on them. I don't even think Trump has denied that he's responsible for this. Maybe he has, I don't know. But surely we're not disagreeing on the facts at hand. And second, it's sort of further emphasized when you said that the employee, in this case Jimmy Kimmel, was saying things that aren't true. I just feel that obviously you didn't listen to what he said, because the only thing he said that wasn't true was it was facetious. It was meant to be understood. The second stage of grief is not actually construction. We know this. So the point is, you're starting from how can I disagree with this person, and not what about what they're saying do I disagree with. You're looking for things you can deny, but the truth doesn't seem to be a focus here. And let's change that, because you might still be right, but we have to talk about true things. Oh, I've missed so much conversation. Foxy, I'm going to ask you, actually, that's fine. Please do call in. But Stephen, if you're not comfortable, let me put that back up. Stephen, if you're not comfortable calling in, I'm happy to talk over text. I think this is a good conversation. It's just difficult in this regard. But let's look at this a little bit more. Steven says the president didn't get Jimmy Kimmel fired. ABC fired him because they were strong-armed by their local affiliates and his ratings suck. There's a case to be made for that before Trump said that what was it? Fallon's next. We've been doing this for 10 years now, where we pretend like Trump isn't doing this or that, and then he does it, and then we have to have a long conversation about, well, he didn't really do it. Oh, but he did, but it was quietly. And then eventually we get to the point where we acknowledge he did it, but that's usually when he's well into it. That's acknowledged offhand, as we're talking about the next horrible thing that is being denied that he's currently doing in front of our eyes. So look, are you going to deny that they had a major merger coming up? I'll tell you this: you're right. They were not strong-armed by their local affiliates, but some local affiliates, did say they were going to drop Kimmel. Also, I just don't know how you can say his ratings suck. Where are you hearing that his ratings were even down? As far as I know, he and Colbert were both doing fantastic. Colbert was having literally record shattering ratings. when he got canned and the show was found to be too expensive. But I'm sorry, let me address the main point. You say the president didn't get Jimmy Kimmel fired. In all seriousness, if the president did get Jimmy Kimmel fired, were you expecting like a press release from the White House? Like what did if he did? I'm not saying that he did now. I will in a moment, and I have been up until now. But for this moment of the conversation, if he did get Jimmy Kimmel fired, do you think there would be a press release, or do you think they would come up with some reason? There would be some narrative that's, oh, I wasn't doing this because I was afraid. I wasn't doing this because I was afraid of the merger. I was doing this because I got a lot of complaint letters. You know how we get a wheelbarrow full of complaints about anything we say, no matter what we say. This time, I chose to hold up those letters and say, ooh, well, sorry, too controversial. I might have chased off the conversation. Well, I'll give you this. Conan is the superior late night host. No arguments there. Conan, probably the best to ever do it, and I know he'd disagree, but I happen to think Conan O'Brien, yeah, no disagreement. I don't know about his ratings. I actually really only I didn't look this up. I looked up Colbert's, but I really only have his pop culture influence as a measure of his success, and the fact that Trump constantly said how much he hates him. But all right, I'll give you that. Maybe his ratings did suck, but that was not why he was fired. He got like 100,000. Here's why that cannot be so. Because they don't even measure like that. You're talking about a late night host. They measure with the Nielsen ratings still to this day. Which I mean, maybe they use other things as well, but Nielsen ratings, they take the amount of homes in an area that have Nielsen boxes, and they divide the total population by the amount of homes that have Nielsen boxes. And then they take so they have that number that they're left over with, set that aside. Then they take what everybody was watching in their Nielsen boxes over the course of a week, and they multiply it, or usually actually over the course of a night, and they multiply it by that number that they were left with before. And they go up to get what the ratings are. And the point is, when you have a nationally televised show, they just don't measure in increments that small. So whoever's telling you that he got ratings of 100,000 views a night, no, he didn't. Maybe his social media follow-up clips got that, but no, not his show. It was a nationally televised, one of the few major late night shows. Do you feel embarrassed that you're doing PR for a late night show, Dork? Yes, on both counts. I do feel embarrassed. It's sad that we've come to this place. Certainly when I was watching The Man Show as a boy, I did not think that one day I would be a man in front of a microphone defending one of the hosts from the federal government firing him over a joke he made about the president. I want to point out he made that joke once again about the president, not Charlie Kirk. That should tell you a lot about what happened here. Yeah, it's embarrassing. It really is. I mean, the fact that our country has fallen to this point where there needs to be something said about it, it's sad. I was hoping that I would be like that all of us would be engaged in a fight that was greater than this. I was hoping all of us would be talking about the most ethical ways to colonize Mars or how we are going to distribute the cancer vaccine around the world. You know, the one we've already had for 10 years and no American dies of cancer anymore. And we're trying to save the world as best we can. And then how do we feed all those people? How do we distribute food evenly as much as we can around the world and nutrients and all that? I was hoping that that is the kind of problems we'd be tackling. But no, we've got a big baby as a president. And before that, we had a man who was 1.5 feet in the grave. He had 1 foot in the grave and he had both hips in it, and he was lowering his other leg into it while running for re-election. I think we are unambitious as a people. I think we get caught in tribalism that not only exposes our lack of ambition, but also our gullibility. I think if you're defending Donald Trump, if you're wasting your breath doing that, it's simply because you're used to team sports, and that's all. And it's your instinct to play. But I think if you're defending Biden, you're doing the same thing. There's really not anything there to defend with Biden. You could, I suppose. I mean, you could think of something. And with Trump, if you really sit down, you could think of something. But we're wasting our time. It's like telling us which of our kidnappers was, a little more generous with the gruel that they slopped onto our plate when they were feeding us and we were chained in a basement in some country. It's sort of a moot point. Trump is not your friend. Trump does not give a about you. It's very clear that he doesn't give a about you. He actually has reacted with disgust many times to the idea of even being around people that vote for him. And you know what? That's true of basically every president. Do you think if I got sat down next to Barack Obama, that dude would be excited to chit chat with me? Bad example. I'm not. Nobody should be excited to chit chat with me. But if Matt Strackbine was sat down next to Obama, would Obama want to chat? No. He wants to hang out with fucking millionaires and celebrities. You think Trump wants to talk to you? No. None of them do, because we've exclusively allowed ourselves to be led by people from a class that is not ours. If you enjoy this type of entertainment, you're not in the same class. They don't enjoy free media. They don't participate in it. They don't even really enjoy public media in the same way we do, because the stories about regular folks, which we're supposed to relate to, those are fantasy stories to them. Those are like when we watch stories about cowboys, when they're imagining our hardships. To them, it's fun to imagine going hungry. Ooh, what would that be like? Ooh, the thrill of it. It's different for them. So if you're here and you're supporting either Trump and I'm not, both sides are not equal in my opinion, but I don't think it's a question that both of them hate us. Like, actually do. That's what they said. 100K Jimmy Kimmel. Whoever they is, they're wrong. I'm sorry. They're wrong, because you just really genuinely would have difficulty measuring that small a number for a nationally broadcast show. I think the minimum, I'll say this, I'll acknowledge this. It has been a full decade since has it been that long? No, it's been 8 years since I've had to take any of those measurements myself. The technology could have changed. But regardless, let's just keep it simple. The joke that the guy made is being reported on as though he made a joke about Charlie Kirk, and he didn't. He made a joke about the president, and then he got fired. Come on. That's as cut and dry as you need. I don't think anybody, at least nobody in the audience, has made this point, but let's talk about it. I'm wondering why it isn't okay for what Kimmel said, but Kilmeade said homeless people should be killed. Yes. I am not in his basement. They found me down there. Well, when you're done with the yardstick, bring it back because I do need it for other things. To what Foxy said, I'm wondering why it isn't okay for what Kimmel said, but Kilmeade said homeless people should be killed. I don't think it is okay. I think Kilmeade should have been fired. And it is okay for what Jimmy Kimmel said. Why? Because Jimmy Kimmel was making a joke, and Brian Kilmeade was not. Jimmy Kimmel was saying the things he was saying in the context of a news show, and Brian Kilmeade was talking about politics. And he said that homeless people should be forced to endure involuntary lethal injection if they don't accept imprisonment or whatever for being homeless. Boy, he should have been fired. But I'll tell you this, neither of those situations should involve the government interfering. That's a decision for the various companies to make. And I think both companies made the wrong decision. In the case of Fox, not firing Kilmeade. In the case of ABC, firing Jimmy Kimmel. Actually, suspended, excuse me. Yeah, he was suspended, not fired. Just wanted to make sure. Pink lips. Oh, your lips are so pink. Yes, they are. No one is listening to your hot conservative takes, LMAO. It's just me. Yeah, well, look. I think you and Foxy and Dominico. I think that's a good start. I'll take it. Interesting that you call them conservative takes. But let's address the lips thing first. I don't want to have stolen valor for my lips. I don't think they are naturally this pink. So let me configure this video and try to white balance a little bit more. There you go. That's perfect. You know what? I take it back. As I'm looking at this, son of a gun, I might just have me some pink lips. All right. Ladies, if you want to get luscious lips like this, all you have to do is smoke an amount of weed that would make Snoop Dogg concerned. Talk about your lips more. Okay, one last one. These are the sort of lips that would get you through a prison sentence with a full commissary. The whole time. Reference frame. Good to see you, Natchikit. Hello, Dell. Hello. Good to see everybody. What is up? What reference is this from? 1998. Sir, you flatter me. This is from 1994. The Jizza. The RZA. That's not even Snoop Dogg. I don't know what I'm talking about. Steven Sevick. I'm not telling people to smoke weed, to be clear. I leave for a few minutes, says Steven, and now you're telling people to smoke weed? No wonder you have no credibility on the Kimmel issue. First of all, I'll have you know I have no credibility on any issue, sir. Second of all, the question was how to get lips this pink. I'm not saying you should. You know, it's hard to go through life this pretty. But if you want lips like this, the only thing I can tell you that I definitely do that most other people don't do is smoke a prodigious amount of good old-fashioned American ganja. All right, let's give a different opinion here. I don't like this one. Guys, give me talk about some issues. Toss out some issues. I'll come up with an opinion. I'll put it on the thing. But I want something proper. I'm going to give you guys a moment to come up with some things you might want to hear about. In the meantime, I'm going to play, what do you call it? It's that thing that, it was invented by, I think, gypsies. Music. I'm gonna play music. And I do hope you'll share with me, some of your ideas for what opinions you'd like to hear about. This is Jake versus the Internet. I'll be right back. Welcome back to WYCD Jake versus the Internet. Whoopsie doodles. Our newest topic of discussion is not the thing that I have here. It is instead this right here. Whoring should be legalized and regulated in the United States. Whoring which is to say, prostitution should be legalized and regulated in the United States. I do not think any government, any government whatsoever, has the right to tell a citizen whom and under what conditions they may sleep around with, so long as you're talking about consenting adults. I think if somebody is does not want to have, let's say, an emotional connection, but merely wants to engage in some traditional sexual intercourse, nothing wrong with selling that. I think on principle, it's fine. I think the problems with the industry of prostitution come from the fact that we know it will not go away, and yet we do not regulate it. We have unregulated businesses everywhere in the United States. Have you ever seen a massage parlor that offers a specific nationality of massage, but doesn't really claim, like, it doesn't have like a special technique or anything? That is probably a cat house. If they're saying, "Hey, there's Thai gals here." Oh, what's Thai massage like? I don't know, like a regular massage. Oh, that's probably a cat house. And those people probably are working under conditions which we would not be okay with. Gasp, says Foxy. Yeah, she's from Nevada. There's towns in Nevada where hooring is perfectly legal, so long as you have certain conditions met for safety. Yeah. So reasonable testing to make sure disease is not spreading throughout the community, reasonable precautions during the act to make sure disease is not spread then and there. Safety, a limit to the number of hours one can work in a day, a limit to the number of hours one can work in a week, a minimum amount of pay, a minimum amount of profit taken off the top for the people that aren't doing the work. I think we have a laugh about it. I certainly don't hesitate to chuckle at these things, but it doesn't mean it's. I mean, we're laughing because I think we all know that no matter what we say or do, this business will continue. It is known as the world's oldest business, a profession, the world's oldest profession, because it has basically from the first time one evolving ape picked up a piece of fruit and said, "Boy, I'll give this to you, but let me have a feel if you don't mind." We've had prostitution, and we can be ashamed of it if we want. But it doesn't change the fact that we will have it. It will continue to exist. Always has, always will. And so now it's really just a question of, well, gosh, are we going to do any protections for the people that do this job? Or are we going to keep it illegal? Because one of the things that makes it dangerous to do is that if somebody assaults you when you are doing this job, you can't just run to the police. You can't say, "Oh, it's time for a police report," because you must first then admit that you've done a crime as well. And even if they don't prosecute you for that crime, if you take them to your place of business where you got assaulted, well, gosh, now they know where you work. Now they know what this place does. Now they're going to send in, when they get a new officer, they're going to say, "You're not going out on patrol yet. Actually, you've got a real fun job. We're going to send you into this cat house that we know is a cat house, and you're going to pretend to be a customer. And when they tell you, give us the money and we'll do the thing, call us in, and then we're going to arrest everybody." That's what will happen if you're an active prostitute in a place right now and you get assaulted. Now, if you cover it up, that customer might come back. do it again. Or even if they never come back, they might regale their friends 5 years down the line. "Oh, one time I was in this brothel, and, I just got so mad that I beat up one of the employees, and she fell funny. She fell funny when I hit her." And they regale their friends with that story, and their friends don't even go back to that first place. They just internalize, "Oh, you can act like a monster with these people, and there's nothing they can do about it." And then his friends, because 'cause they're all so awful, go and they behave like monsters because they think that's just what's normal, and you know what? That is just what's normal. It's a normal way for terrible people to engage with prostitutes, but it happens all the time because this is an illegal and therefore unregulated industry, which will continue to exist whether or not we say it's allowed to. Whoring could be a word if you were to look at it in terms of phonic pronunciation and squint your eyes and turn your head a little bit. Now that's interesting. How about the model where it's legal to sell but illegal to buy? I guess I'm okay with that. Like, all right, let me put it like this. If that's the way by which we arrive at a safer world, I am okay with that. But it is fundamentally dishonest. In this scenario, we are. No, I see what you're saying, but it's still fundamentally dishonest. You still have the same. You have a lot of the same problems. Like, for example, if you say it happened at this business, they can then realize, people go to this business to buy things. I need a warrant from a judge. I now have a reason to get a warrant from a judge. I need a warrant from a judge to bug the place. I will then bug the place and I will then bust them and take out all their clients. You know, it's because we're not just coming out and saying it. If we say it's legal to sell but illegal to buy, we're still saying this thing shouldn't be happening. But we're just going to be a little less cruel in the way we enforce these laws. I'm saying these laws shouldn't exist. I'm saying fundamentally, what you've put here addresses one of the problems I was discussing. You're right. And I accept that. It doesn't fully address it. There's still problems, but it does. It's an attempt to make a conversion kit here. But it doesn't address all the problems. Because one of the other things I was saying is it's not our business. It's not your business. It's not my business. What some lady or gentleman or whoever does with their body. If they want to, if or the conditions under which they have sex. So long as it's again between consenting adults, and that's in fact even kind of a double. It's a redundant because a child cannot consent legally, and nor should they be able to. But as long as it's between consenting adults, it's just not our business. Who cares if a Muslim and a Christian person have sexual intercourse? It's not our business. The conditions under which they do it. Who cares if it's a trophy spouse and their wealthy spouse? It doesn't matter. It's not for us to decide. We can judge. It's our God-given right to judge. But as a matter of ethics, it's not our position to say. So I would not like that, but I would take that over our current system. I appreciate your thoughts, brother man. Thank you, Natch Kid. It's the same as escorts. You can't buy the escort. You can rent their time. Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. I could see that. When you take someone on a date and it ends with doing the deed, didn't the person who paid for the meal sort of, pay for the date, pay for the intercourse? Yes. That's been pointed out by the great philosopher Riley Freeman. That that's essentially what's going on. And you know what? Nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's wrong, obviously, if either of you are pretending like it means something more or letting the other person pretend like it means something more when that's not what's going on. But that's personal stuff, you know? That's a matter of personal honor and all that, not a matter for laws. Uh, but it is essentially the same thing, and there should be no need for a middleman here. If if you whoopsie daisies, if you take the cost of a meal and what have you, and on a whole date, and you think, you know what? I don't want to go on the date. I might enjoy the sex. I'm going to try the sex regardless. I'd rather just have the money. I think that is like I in my brain, I'm trying to empathize with people that are like against that notion, but in my brain, I can't even come up with the like why you would have a problem with that exchange. To me, that's everybody being on the level, being upfront. It's honest, good, moral behavior. Well, strippers do it all the time. Well, yeah, I mean, because it's a safe, like that. Again, when people tease about there being like a back room where if you pay an extra, like, yeah, that's fair. And it's a safe environment to do such a thing, relatively speaking. Like, that just makes sense. I don't know, what did we eat? Uh, Carrot. You know, remember that asparagus and soy sauce thing I came up with? I just tried the same thing with carrots and rice. And gotta tell you, folks, I'm gonna make about $1 billion selling this thing. I'm referring to letting the guy think they are really interested. Well, yeah, that is mean. Oh, and the man pays to be told that? Well, then if he knows what's going on, if there's no deception happening except for the one he asked for, then okay. I don't know why you would want that, but if that's what you want, go ahead. Oh, interest outside of the club. Well, now we're getting into territory that I have no idea. Look, I'm a veteran of many a titty bar, but I've never once thought to myself, you know what I would enjoy doing is uh, making small talk with anyone outside of this establishment about the events of this establishment, or in the establishment talking about unbreast related things. I don't know. It just maybe I'm wrong. Actually, you know what? Maybe you get a connection with somebody. Yeah, I don't know. The sex thing must be healthy and safe. I agree. I think yet another major problem we have. If you work at a place that relies on having a staff of, let's say, 5 people there to serve as clients, and 2 of your staff get sick, so 40% of your workforce is sick. Are you gonna stop taking clients, or are you gonna roll the dice? I would probably stop taking clients because it's in my nature to feel bad if I make money in a way that I'm not proud of. The money doesn't spend the same, I guess. Uh, I don't think everybody would, and that's a decision made for money that harms public health. So I think that's a layup. Yes, that is a great reason why it should be not only legal, but regulated. Because you can't regulate it if it's illegal. Yeah, in clubs. Yeah, the ladies are tested regularly in clubs. Absolutely. That should be true. STDs, same thing, man. Dominico, that's one of the things I'm worried about. Yeah, and Foxy's saying condoms should be required. I agree. Condoms, it's just a necessity. If you are interacting with the public in this way, yeah, you need to take reasonable precaution. The STD problems is exactly what I'm talking about. When I say your people are like, if you have 2 of your employees get sick, I mean transmissible diseases, whatever those are. If they got the clap and the doctor says, "Look, they need penicillin and a week off," are you gonna give them that week off? Are they gonna take that week off? In a regulated industry, they would have no choice. There would be an inspector who would say who would be coming in and saying, "All right, well, look, you'll lose your license if these ladies are working anytime in the next 7 days, so they better not be. And, oh, by the way, they got this sickness in the line of duty, we suspect, so you still have to pay them." And probably there would be an insurance industry around this. So, shoot, we have 2 sick employees. Thankfully, we have insurance for this. They're gonna cover their wages. That's the sort of thing we should be dealing with. We all have microplastics in our body. That's true. Universal health care is needed for a reason. Absolutely true. Now, this is interesting. I think that if we legalized it, it should be restricted to a facility that can regulate, and I don't think it should be an independent contractor deal. I don't know how I feel about this. My instinct is to say, no, no, I should be able to open up my front door, not figuratively, but literally open up my front door. Well, it's an apartment building, but you know what I mean. I should be able to open up my home and put a sign on the outside that says "Hooring here," and just start doing business if I so choose. That's my instinct. But when I think about the horrors that sex workers have had to endure, and I think about just the way people for some reason choose to be the weird overlap of violence and sex, which is another thing I don't get, but I have noticed. Uh, Probably you're right. Probably it should be, and also to another degree, maybe I don't think that I should be able to just open up any business out of a residential area because it's a residential area. Even if you don't object to the business, you'd certainly object to having a line of cars, waiting for their turn. Yeah, all right, I'm with you, Foxy. I think I'm there with you. So part of the regulations should be that it must, the business must be conducted on premises. So the person can't leave with you don't have the service worker go to another location. And yeah, there should be monitors in the building, not monitoring the business as it's happening, the sexual intercourse, but like an actual human being whose job it is to look out for the gals, look out for the clients, look out for everybody, and absolutely issue fines on the spot if they come across violations. Like, for example, if they see somebody who's trying to skip their STD test or whatever, or they, I don't know how these tests would do, but if they steal somebody's swab or they mess with those tests in some way, yeah, on the spot, all right, that's a $500 fine. There's no there's no question about this. It's yours now. You got to deal with it. Also, review board, you got to go take a test to prove you know why these things, like things along that line, should be handled by the monitor. They're called floor walkers, Jake. Oh, okay. I didn't read walkers as that first thing. You can't do it even if it was a regular business without a business license, and in a neighborhood, that type of business is not allowed. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I have I have uh I have an I just don't want to overstate this case, but my baseline for anything, I guess you'd call it bias. I have an internal bias, maybe. My first instinct for anything is to say that the government should not be able to tell you, particularly when it comes to your body, what you do or when you do it or how you do it. But running a business is slightly different. If you're providing the business end, yeah, I see your point. It should just not be. You can't make that other people's lives as well. As a Nazi, what's the best indie band? I am not a Nazi. I, like every other good and decent human being, wish to crush Nazis into a fine paste spread across the street because Nazis are National Socialists. They are irrationally evil people. But I'll tell you this, my wishes for the crushing and the paste making, I would not actually spend on a genie. If I could spend it on a genie, I would wish that the Nazis of the world, instead of getting turned to paste, were developed a little more empathy. What's your take? Interesting. What's the best indie band? I'm not even sure what bands that I like are indie. I like the Butts, Butts. I like the Butts. They're kind of like I don't even know, like metal ska. They're weird. There's a reason, like they're never going to be famous. You won't like them. The Butts, the Butts. But I like them. I like the Butthole Surfers. Speaking of, big fan. What's an independent band? See, I'm exposing my ignorance here because I don't even know the question well enough to answer it. What is my favorite indie band? Give me yours. You said Alexis on Fire. I wouldn't even. Oh, get out of town. Welcome to the only other person I'm aware of who's ever even heard of these dudes. That's awesome. Okay. And I'm shocked that Alexis on Fire constitutes an indie band. I thought they were mega, mega huge. Look at this. What is happening? Do you know how many rooms I've been in where I have mentioned this band and everybody just looks at me because I had to say the word Butthole Surfers in a context they didn't get? Hey, I'll take it. Thank you. All right, so whoring should be legalized and regulated seems to be universally agreed upon by the internet. I think we can safely say that we've convinced all of America, and we can expect our local cat houses to open up at any time. Again, if you disagree, you can click on the link in the description. It'll take you into StreamYard, and then we'll have discussions about life. All right, gang, we're going to switch it up. I'm going to do I've deleted it. Nope, no, I didn't. Okay, good. We're going to switch it up a little bit. Do a new question in just a moment. But first, the same song again. I'll see you in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. I'll find different song.
I met a girl, it's always about a girl, but this one, she might just save me from my fragile mind as it starts to waste my time on red flags, past wounds and maybe.
No way, you wanna clap, man.
Keep it moving till you're ready to go.
No way, you're wasting your time, man.
Keep it moving till you're ready to go.
No way, you wanna clap, man.
Keep it moving till you're ready to go.
No way, you're wasting your time, man.
Keep it moving till you're ready to go.
You here, baby, we can get along. Miss you here, baby.
wanna feel good, no, no. I just wanna feel good. I just wanna feel good, no, no. I just wanna feel good. I just wanna feel good, no, no. I just wanna feel good. I just wanna feel good, no, no. I just wanna feel good. I just wanna feel good, no, no. I just wanna feel good. I just wanna feel good, no, no. I just wanna feel good. I just wanna feel good, no, no. I just wanna feel good. I just wanna feel good, no, no. I just wanna feel good. I just wanna feel good, no, no. I just wanna feel good. I just wanna feel good, no, no. I just wanna feel good. I just wanna feel good, no, no. I just wanna feel good. I just wanna feel good, no, no. I just wanna feel good.
No. I love that song. I love Ready for Smoke. That's Ready for Smoke, what you were about to hear by Saint Society. Y'all aren't ready for it. You're just not ready for Saint Society. I'll give it to you. Don't worry. You'll get it one day. But you got to build up your tolerance. All right, got a bit of a controversial one here. I want to reiterate, this is just my opinion. And if I'm wrong, I'd like you to tell me how I'm wrong and maybe change my opinion. Here it is. Israel should no longer receive weapons shipments from the United States. Here's why I think we should no longer, the U.S. should not be supplying weapons to Israel. Regardless of how you feel about the intentions of the country of Israel, they have not used the weapons we've given them in a way that is good for Israel or good for America, certainly not good for the citizens of Palestine. They have used these weapons in a horrifying manner. Now, again, I'm saying take intentions out of it. Even if you think, if you are yourself a citizen of Israel and you think the government has nothing but good intentions and all of that, that's fine. I think you should still be on my side on this. The reason is that they are killing so many civilians. It really, it not only can it not be denied, it hasn't been denied. Israel has denied individual cases, sure, but when you say, do you acknowledge that there's at least tens of thousands, it looks more like hundreds of thousands dead from the use of these weapons, and that you've killed more people than Hamas ever had in its membership, ever. If you took all of Hamas's membership over the years and you added them together every year, there's still more people dead than have ever belonged to Hamas. That's the military target, is members of Hamas, seemingly. That's just no way. Either they're using them immorally or incompetently. And it just doesn't matter which is true. It doesn't matter if they meant to blow up the hospitals with pregnant ladies inside. It doesn't matter if they meant to kill the U.S. journalists. It doesn't matter if they meant to gun down the people trying to pick up food. They have done those things. I've seen those things. We're giving them the means to harm themselves, ultimately, in the long term. Now, if you gave a damn about somebody with a little bit of melanin in their skin, I wouldn't have to, well, that would be its own argument for not supplying these weapons anymore. But there is a larger one as well, which is they're not doing the thing that they're supposed to be doing. They're not making anybody safer. Again, you may disagree that they were ever meant to begin with, but that's the story. That's the reason we're giving them weapons. the defense of the country of Israel, but they're not contributing to that right now. What they are doing is creating permanent enemies for Israel. So, yeah, if you care about just innocent people getting gunned down, we should say no more. But if you only care about Israel and the fate of Israel, you should still say, US, stop giving them weapons. Please, I beg you. And as Americans, those of us that are Americans here, we in particular ought to know better. Because we did the same thing 20 years ago in 2003. We went to war with Iraq because we got attacked, and a far-right extremist government that we had in place at the time, the Bush administration, it's a stretch to call them extremists, but a far-right government, let us say, government that we had in place took advantage of the fear U.S. citizens felt, of the anger, outrage, panic that we felt, and we went to war for 20 years. We went to war for 2 decades on this, and we caused generations of trauma. We ensured that there will be enemies of the U.S. for the rest of our lives who hold a grudge about this. And what we did not do was make anything safer for the United States for a good long time. It wasn't until we did a precise operation, a strategic operation with our expert troops, that we finally got the guy, the one dude who we were going after. Millions of civilians dead, but we got one guy, and it had nothing to do with killing all those civilians. We just went around him when we finally got him. And it wasn't even in a country we invaded. It was in Pakistan. Those dudes were hiding it. I say those dudes. Of course, the government never officially acknowledged that they were doing this and blah, 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 blah. But the point is, it wasn't in any of the countries we attacked. All those people that we said are hiding terrorists, all those kids we gunned down, the terrorists were right behind them. So, we had to shoot through the kids. It was pointless. And you know what? It wasn't our fault. U.S. citizens who were alive at that time, it was not our fault. We got tricked. We were lied to. But it is our responsibility. It was then, not our fault, but it was our responsibility. And it is now. Now it will be our fault. If we were alive for that and we didn't learn, now it is our fault. How much do you wish if you lost a family member in one of those pointless wars? Or your family member came back from one of those pointless wars acting permanently a little bit weird because they gunned down civilians and they were told that they were defending you, and they realized that they in fact didn't defend you, and they came back a little weird. They said, "Oh, I committed a murder." How badly would you have liked for another country to have intervened and said, "Hey, US, don't do this. Hey, US, we're saying that you cannot shame yourself in this way." We might have a disagreement. Oh, heck yeah. DJX, hey, Jake, I think I have someone who might call in. I don't know, though. Have to ask first. Do tell them that I'd love to speak with them. And in the meantime, we have a future POTUS here with us. Domenico, hello, my friend.
Hi there.
Let me lay this out a little different. There we go. The thing we are debating: the U.S. should stop giving weapons to Israel. What are your thoughts?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I must admit that's like a very instinctual yes, but it's like, okay, basically what I can surmise and gather from current events and I suppose the everything from the past, it just seems like it's like the United States after Israel, they're all the two of them are trying to tag team the world in a fight.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty accurate, I'd say.
But it's like, in my opinion, it's like, okay, you start off with Israel, and what is Israel doing? Israel, in my opinion, is activating the villains of their whatever their way of life is, and they're exacting it. It's like they're trying to warp. I mean, I'll just come out and say it. It's like, okay, it's like two specific religions. You have the Judaism, and then you have the those of Muslim or Islam, and those two, the villains of those two are going at it at the moment, and they've the problem is they've been going at it for thousands of years. So it's like, oh dear, like what is the rest of the world supposed to do with that? Our best, I suppose.
And real quick, hey, nobody in the mods, if you see bad language, please do hide the comment, but nobody jump on Newman Core. I understand the temptation, Hatchikit, everybody else. I understand the temptation, but don't. We'll talk. It's all good. But Newman Core, be kind, please, to the people who come up, because that's the point of this show. I'm inviting people up. And second, maybe listen for a little bit. See what people had to say. Domenico, I would agree largely with what you're saying, but I would say we have the three Abrahamic religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And the villains of those three religions, represented by Israel, Hamas, and the United States leadership currently, all engaged in a bloodbath over there. We just are less. It's less obvious how guilty we are because our bloodshed is happening in the forms of sending over the weapons. But we're right there in terms of guilt and in terms of peoples who will have to answer for this one day. We're right up there with everybody else.
1,000%. I totally agree with that. I was just referring to, like, okay, for example, if I ever check the news, I wake up, I look at Democracy Now, but even just by observing that, I can tell, okay, I'm getting like a limited scope of what is actually going on. And then I'm like, okay, well, and like I Googled it once upon a time. I was like, okay, with the way it's being presented to me as an American, if you will, I'm watching Democracy Now. What do they typically start like 4 out of 5 times a week? They start off with whatever's going on in Gaza, and then what the villains of Israel are doing towards Gaza, and then they spread out from there. And it's like, okay, what are the villains in response doing? Well, okay, obviously that would be the Hamas. But I'm not oblivious to the fact that, like, as you shared, the 3 Abrahamic religions, okay, totally, I agree. It's like the 3 villains of those 3 Abrahamic, that's the root of whatever it is that's going on with this conflict. In the past, in World War II, obviously the apex, if you will, was the okay. So it's like you have those 3 Abrahamic religions. Where does it start? It starts. There's older religions for sure. I don't know the names of those, but I know that there are older religions. But unfortunately, it just seems to be like a recurring theme, if you will, where the villains of all these religions, the evils of all these religions, they either go internally or they go externally, and then they start a fight with all the other ones. And that seems to be the theme. And it's just something for us to consider that's going on. But to answer the specific question of should the U.S. stop giving weapons to Israel? Yes, in my opinion, that's a very, like, that's the good thing to do, because But some people would be like, okay, well then you're disarming the villains of Israel. They wouldn't say that, but that's essentially what you would effectively be doing. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, so you're letting the villains of Muslims and Islam, you're letting them have a leg up on the competition if you do that. And I'm like, you know what? We all really should stop. The villains of those two are like ours or theirs, like any religion. Villains of any religion should be stopped.
Yeah. The villains need guns to do evil. The good guys don't need guns to do good. You know? So if we stop giving weapons of mass destruction, whatever they're called, massive military weapons to a country, the people that want to kill will be disappointed, sure. The people that don't want to kill, who are the people I would prefer to be dealing with, they're not going to mind. So, on its sleeve, I'm fine with that. Since it seems like we don't disagree, brother, I think we call that a call. Thank you.
You are very welcome. Thank you. I just spontaneously was like, oh, I'll give it a shot.
Heck yeah, I appreciate it. I'll see you around, Dominico.
Have a good one forever.
That's Dominico, longtime friend of the show, longtime friend of your old pal Jake. I tell you, I enjoy hearing from him, regardless of the context. Although I do want to say on that point with what he was saying, it is very telling when you look at it from that perspective. I think that was a good perspective he was bringing up. Basically, when he says the villains of this religion, it highlights the fact that not everybody who's Jewish wants Israel to be run this way. In fact, not everybody who's Jewish actually has a say in how Israel is run. In fact, there's more Jews that don't live in Israel than there are Jews in Israel. Because Judaism is a religion. It is a worldwide thing. It is not coming from one country. In fact, there is just one country, which is a theocracy run on Judaism, and it is not a good reflection of the religion. Similarly, the United States has almost exclusively, not almost, it has only been run by people who at least say they are Christian. Does the behavior of the worst presidents of the United States translate to, oh, well, this is what Christians are like? No. The religion is the excuse by which these powerful, corrupt people are running their countries. It is not the guiding light of these people. Not of Israel, not of the United States, not of Palestine. And I want to point out, Palestine was not even actually truly run by Hamas. It was still run by Israel, but Hamas was the at the time, year and a half ago, the oh my gosh, life has been very strange. Anyway, Hamas was not in charge, but they were the main political unit. It's the scapegoat. Yeah. It's the scapegoat. Good vocabulary pull. Ooh, DJX, I'm excited. I hope you got me, somebody. But if you didn't, I thank you for trying anyway, my friend. We're talking Israel and the fact that I think that the U.S. should stop giving weapons to Israel because we are an ally of, well, I like to think decency all around the world, but also we're an ally of Israel. And we have the experience to know not only that they're hurting themselves right now, but that they're hurting themselves right now with our assistance. We're enabling them to hurt themselves in a way we hurt ourselves, in a way that darn near broke this country. Some might argue did break this country. Understand that some of the biggest loss of rights in the United States happened under George W. Bush in the wake of 9/11. As a response to 9/11, Homeland Security is a fascistic organization. It is an organization which spies on U.S. citizens regularly without warrants. It is what Edward Snowden was railing against. And all this happened while we were blindly fighting a war that was unnecessary. The same thing's happening to Israel right now. Freedoms in Israel are evaporating so that they can attack Palestinians. But the thing of it is, the attack on the Palestinians is not there out of necessity. If you're looking at it in terms of the loss of rights on account of the attacks, you're looking at it backwards. It's the attacks are happening so that they can take away their own citizens' rights, and also so that they can steal the land. Israel right now would like more access to the ocean. There's a strip of land in between them and access to the ocean. So, kill everybody on it. Take it. That's the thoughts of Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu, far-right extremist. Ben-Gvir, far-right extremist. Not unlike Bush, not unlike Trump. I can't say that Obama was a far-right extremist, but he had every disregard for our rights that any other president ever has. Obama was not a good person. I encourage you to understand that. He was not a good person, not a good leader, did not have our best interests in mind. He had reasons for behaving the way he did. I certainly don't think it's worth spending a lot of time being angry with him, because there are much worse people, and he's not done all bad. But let's not lionize the man. He also participated in the stripping of rights of U.S. citizens. He also killed a U.S. citizen without a trial. He just ordered the execution of a U.S. citizen. We've been led by villains our whole lives. And I think sometimes we look at our own survival and think, well, all that villainy must have been necessary. No, we didn't survive because they were evil. We survived in spite of their evil. My whole life, it's been just a horror show. What was it since I was born? Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump. Just a chain of people who didn't give a about us. Not a one of them was not involved in some scandal that if true, should result in a prison sentence. Don't believe me? Reagan and Bush Sr., Iran-Contra. If you're not familiar with that, happy to talk about it anytime. Clinton, you know what? We're doing a new thing. We're doing a new one. I'm not doing this anymore. I want to talk about something different now. I'm going to type it up with my fingies. We'll be back in a short amount of time. Here's music. You're ready. No, you're not. We're doing I Did It. Like Lee John.
I've been spending too much time chasing after dreams. And the more I close my eyes, the more that I can see that what I got right now is never more than what I need. I'll wait patiently, and all I'll do is grind. All I'll do is hustle, all I'll do is shine. I put hundreds in a duffel, I ain't worried about mine. Only time till I get it, and I can show the world that I came up and I did it. I did it. I did it. That boy, he did it. I did it. All I do is grind, all I do is hustle, all I do is shine. I put hundreds in a duffel, I ain't worried about mine. Only time till I get it, and I can show the world that I came up and I did it. I did it. I did it. That boy, he did it. I did it.
Just because I like you, we're going to do this bridge.
is hustle.
Please,
All I'll
John,
do is
my
shine.
word.
I put hundreds.
Great little piece of music. Different thing I want to talk about. Every U.S. president in the last 40 years should have gone to prison. That is what I want to debate. If you disagree with me on that, get ready. I'm going to hit you with both barrels because, boy, every U.S. president in the last 40 years should have gone to prison. Hold up. Let's do this thing. Ronald Reagan and his vice president, George H.W. Bush, should have gone to prison for Iran-Contra. Let me get the correct name. So, Oliver North, right. So here's the deal. Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush were not supposed to sell arms to the Contras. Instead, they sold arms they were not supposed to fund the Contras. They sold arms to people they were not supposed to sell them to so that they could then have a slush fund, which they used to fund the Contras. The Contras were a terrorist organization. Then they lied about it. And then there was a big congressional hearing. And Oliver North is the only one who, quote unquote, suffered. But then he was made the head of the NRA. A private group, but still, he didn't suffer. So for illegal arms sales and for funding a terrorist organization to overthrow another country, Reagan and George H.W. Bush should have gone to prison. Bill Clinton. Yes, he lied under oath about the beach, but you know what? I don't think he should have gone to prison for that. Instead, I think Bill Clinton should have gone to prison. First of all, if it turns out he is in the Epstein files, please release the Epstein files, by which I mean the list of all suspected clients, because we haven't had a chance to prove it, suspected clients of Jeffrey Epstein. If he's there, he should go to prison for that. But what he should definitely go to prison for is assaulting the women that he is accused of assaulting. Now, when I say that these presidents should have gone to prison, what I mean is they should have had a trial wherein we can find out if these things I'm saying about them are true. But the problem is these things that I'm saying about them, which are credible, which are accusations that have been leveled against them, they were not heard in a court of law. So how am I supposed to know whether they are true or not? Now, they've taken the fact that we're not supposed to leap to the assumption that they're not true, or that we're not supposed to leap to the assumption that they are true, to instead demand we leap to the assumption that they're not true. But that only happens if you're a president. Because the rest of us would have to go to a trial based on this stuff. So, a bunch of women said that Bill Clinton sexually assaulted them. That's not a joke. That should have been dealt with. This guy should have had to answer for that in front of a court of law. So now we've got Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Clinton. Well, what about good old George W., huh? What about George W. Bush? Well, he and Colin Powell told us all, in the form of lying to Congress, told us all that they had proof of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. In fact, what they had was a report from U.S. intelligence telling us that there was zero. That's a big old goose egg, gang. Zero evidence that there was any weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. He lied. And as a result, your family member might have been one of the 10,000 U.S. soldiers or 7,000 U.S. contractors that died for that lie. What about the millions of people in Iraq that died for that lie? That's murder, gang. When you kill someone and it's not in the line of duty, that's just murder. Wasn't manslaughter, because it wasn't an accidental killing. It was intentional killing. It was deaths these mother knew would happen. That's murder. There's no statute of limitations on that. If we wanted, we could still grab George W. Bush's behind and toss it into a cell and say, trial is next month. Speaking of murder, Barack Obama killed a U.S. citizen. Let me find out his name. He authorized a drone strike in 2011 that killed Anwar al-Awlaki. Now, al-Awlaki was a member of Al-Qaeda, we think. He was a senior member of Al-Qaeda. I don't want to pretend like Obama just decided randomly, I want to have a power trip today. But it doesn't matter what criminal group this guy was hypothetically in. Because you know what he didn't have? A trial that would prove to your satisfaction and mine that, number one, this guy was a member of that group, and two, he was going to be punished in a way that is meted out by the courts. That this guy was a member of that group and he was a threat to us. And therefore, if he was going to die, we would say it. Not Obama. We would say it. I would have preferred life imprisonment. Actually, I would have preferred for a dude that was just a member of a terrorist group like this, life imprisonment with the possibility of parole. That's what I would have preferred. If it turns out it was even true. The U.S. government, not great at identifying who's a member of what. Boy, howdy. So, Barack Obama. Oh, shit, they're a leftist terrorist? No, he was a far-right terrorist. He was a member of Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is a far-right... Basically, every Muslim group that you've been afraid of in your lifetime is a far-right extremist group. It's just exactly like, the Christians are in America. It's when people can claim to be moral just by claiming an association with whatever the most popular religion is in the given area, dishonest people will use that religion as a means of laundering evil intentions. And yeah, they prey upon the right wing like this. So yeah, he was a far right terrorist. But what do you mean stop lying? That's what it was. I'm not casting judgment in this case. In fact, I'm pointing to Obama, a center left, one might argue, president. But no, it's just a fact. They are a far right religious extremist group. I don't know what to tell you other than that is what they are. But I don't care. Like even if he was a member of that group, Anwar al-Awlaki. Like let me be very clear. If I was sitting down with Anwar al-Awlaki, we wouldn't be getting along. Like this dude and I wouldn't be getting along. I don't know. Like we couldn't have been farther apart on the political spectrum. But that doesn't mean it doesn't mean he doesn't have a right to a trial. And I guess I hesitate because it's not even about his rights so much. It's about the process. It's about whether or not we actually have these rights. Yes, exactly. Because they still get due process because it's not about whether or not Barack Obama thought this guy deserved to die. It's about whether you and I did. Now, we don't actually get asked our vote. We have to rely on we have to rely on the courts to represent us. But there's a reason that that's a democratic process as much as we can get, and it decided by our own individual localities how the judges get there. But it's up to us to put those judges in place. And Barack Obama stole that decision from us. Barack Obama just decided on his own, nah, this guy's a terrorist. So I the dude who is in the executive branch, I'm going to decide, no, for this moment, I'm in the judicial branch and I'm going to kill him. I decided he doesn't have, when you're a U.S. citizen and you join this gang, you no longer get treated like a citizen. So who are we at so far? Ronald Reagan, fucking prison for funding terrorists. George H.W. Bush, prison for the same thing. Bill Clinton, prison for not keeping his hands to himself, for sexually assaulting somebody. Again, we didn't have the trial. I would like for us to have had the trial. But there's a case to be made. And the fact that there was no trial with the evidence at hand, shocking. Barack Obama, prison. He killed somebody. I understand that he did it publicly. I understand that other people in the government helped him do this. It does not change the fact that even if he's found to not be guilty, it's telling that we haven't even had a trial, that we haven't even had discussions of a trial. And of course, Donald Trump. There's 1,000 things you could name that he's actually done. But let's just use his reaction to the Charlie Kirk shooting. When everybody was scared, when everybody had just seen something horrible, they were feeling big in their emotions, how did he behave? Well, he accused people on the left of being the shooter when we had no idea. He said, I'm not going to get too weighed down. I don't want to overfocus. Let's just say, for stirring a panic after the shooting, for accusing this of being politically motivated, when to this moment, we still don't know what the reason was. We only have conjecture. And if that's not satisfactory to you, just January 6th. If that's not satisfactory to you, Jesus, okay, just the whole withholding of the documents. If that's not satisfactory to you, okay, accepting the bribe from Qatar, $400 million bribe. If that's not acceptable to you, you see where I'm going. But how angry can I even be that Trump is acting like a fucking raider, basically? We didn't, for the last 40 years, not one of these motherfuckers have had to answer for their crimes. So can the folks on the left, which I consider myself to be, can the folks on the left really be that angry that these crimes that we really don't like are not being punished when no crimes have been punished? I actually think the answer to that is yes, but we should be very clear about the things we are angry about. Not one of these motherfuckers in my whole lifetime has deserved to spend the rest of their lives as free men. They should have been in prison. The key can be lost, and it would be no loss to society. If you disagree, if you think any one of those people out of the last 40 years, from Reagan till now, if you think any one of them didn't deserve prison time, call in. Because if you think I was going hard on Trump, I wasn't. I was going standard on Trump, and I went light on everybody else. There are other things you could arrest every last one of those pricks for. Also, it's acceptable. Oh my God. It is not acceptable. It is the emoluments clause means that the president could not keep a bag of tea gifted to them by a foreign dignitary because it would influence their decision. And a $400 million plane from Qatar, it's just blatantly corruption. You should be in prison. They keep trying. I don't think Indy is going to call in this time. Well, look, archaeology is difficult. Jake is sounding like an extremist here. I am. It's an extreme thing in America to suggest that the presidents of the United States are not above the law. It is an extreme position, but I am so proudly because I happen to believe what I was told, which is that the president is not above the law and we should behave like it. But if we're going to behave like it, means we should acknowledge the fact that we haven't been so far. I was talking about denying due process. Yeah, no, I definitely should not deny due process. Certainly not. Good boy. Well, thank you. I agree with you too much. Oh no. Yeah, it's not good to agree with me too much because you will live a miserable life. Well, gang, I had a lot of fun with this one. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for chatting with me. I think we basically fixed America. Good job. We'll see how quickly we can implement all this stuff, and I'll see you on the next one, whenever that should be. I'm sorry, I'm getting Inuyasha vibes suddenly. I think I'm gonna go watch Inuyasha. Foxy. Oh, yeah, I might have to argue with Devil's Advocate. Devil's Advocate Productions is awesome. Anyway, imagine I said something charming for the outro. Oh, hey, here's something I definitely do need. I will starve to death if I don't get enough people signed up to my Patreon. I prefer Patreon when I look at how I'm going to monetize this thing. I probably will monetize the YouTube channel again at some point. I prefer Patreon. I just prefer it. That's how I'd like to set up the business end of this. So if you like what I do and you'd like to see more of it, consider supporting me for just $5 a month on Patreon. Thank you so much, and never trust the sons of Yakub. This has been Jake versus the Internet.